Hey guys, welcome back to Big Loz Official. We got back from Bahrain yesterday, was absolutely shattered, had a good night's sleep though, feeling refreshed, and as always we're here to bring you an honest response of how things went down this weekend at the World Ultimate Strongman Bahrain. So as always, we're bringing our thoughts on the latest big strongman competition. Obviously a little bit different this time round as I was working on the show, but that certainly doesn't mean these guys get any exemption from Uncle Loz's reports on strongman. So I'm going to start on the negatives because there's been a few comments online and there was a few things that actually I wasn't happy with while working on the show. Starting off with where I was based for the commentary, we were off away from the actual competition. So there's a big screen in front of us, myself and Andy Shepherd working on the commentary together. All we saw was the exact same feed that people back home would have seen. So Liz actually got to see a lot more of what was going on than I did. And obviously there was a number of issues in terms of the commentary from my point of view. We weren't getting enough information relayed back to us. I know a lot of people have sort of asked why I didn't say certain things at certain points. Half the time it's just because I didn't know what was happening. And obviously when you're doing a commentary job, you've got to be careful with what you're saying. So I didn't want to bring any false information to anyone and just guess what was happening. So I tried to focus on what I could actually see. I've spoken to the organisers, and Andy has as well. And, you know, Andy's got good experience working in some different events as well. So it was really good to work with him. But yeah, there's certainly things that need improving. So the information that's being relayed back to ourselves, the graphics on screen, that really didn't work out how they were hoping. And obviously as fans watching, you want that information of what's happening, where people placed, so you can kind of see the story of how the show is going, how people are doing, how people are going to need to do on the next event. And obviously that gives me, you know, lots of things to talk about, seeing where each athlete placed. We did get individual results come through to us, but then we weren't being told the overall scores, things like that. And as a commentator, I can't be focusing on commentating on the show and trying to figure out the overall scores and stuff like that. So that was something I felt needed improving. So before we kind of put our thoughts on here, we wanted to talk to the organisers ourselves. I wanted to give them my feedback on where I felt things could be better, just from a personal point of view. I think one good thing about these guys, they ask all the athletes, they ask the people working on the show, even like Liz, who's kind of, you know, got freedom to move around at the worst shows. They were asking for your opinion on things as well. So it's been quite nice to see that they want that reception.
Definitely.
And, you know, I spoke to Don this morning, gave him all my feedback, and he's been so receptive to some of the things that I've mentioned already here, and actually has the ball rolling on improving them for next time already, which is great to hear. So a couple of points that Don picked up straight away from my feedback was that they already have IT guys now working on a much better scoring system that can be passed through to everyone instantly, so we can really track who's doing what and where, rather than having someone bring scores to the commentators or to the, you know, the referees, and you know, because you do need those scores instantly everywhere, especially for a live event. You want it up on screen so you guys can see what's going on. We need to know what's going on. The referees and organisers need to go on to what's going on. So it is a little bit more complicated than a clipboard with some paper, but in this day and age it's something that can be easily put together. They've got good IT guys now working on it, so next time shouldn't be an issue. Also, they're very, very acutely aware that now if they go abroad, they need their own crew that understands what they're doing. And I spoke to them. I gave a good example, like the Giants Live crew. When they're doing events in the UK, they're a crisp machine. You know, that every single person backstage knows exactly what they're doing. And it's one thing that Darren and Colin do very, very well. To be
they're
fair,
very experienced team, aren't they?
They are. They've been putting the shows together for years. Darren's team know exactly where things need to be, where they should be. And I think the worst team now realise they need to take a leaf out of their book,
like that,
focus on getting a good team around them.
Definitely.
This competition, they weren't in their home country. They're using people that, unfortunately, there were some language barriers.
And lack of experience as well.
And it's not good enough. You know, we can all forgive things. But
we have to learn.
Exactly. And that's what they're doing. They are learning. They are trying to make things better. One of the other issues, I guess, that people have kind of complained about was some of the events and the equipment in the events. Because I was in the commentary booth, all I had was the screen that everyone back home saw. Liz, however, has had full reign to see everything. And talking to you afterwards, I got a lot more of an understanding of what was happening.
Yeah, so I was in a very privileged position because I was pretty much access all areas. So I was watching the event and then I was backstage with the athletes too. I don't feel that much went wrong with the show. I enjoyed it.
Well, there's loads of positives and I want to move on to them in a minute.
Yeah, well, I've got a mixed bag, okay? So I really enjoyed the show. I thought it was great. And I was genuinely shocked at how strong a reaction I saw online afterwards because I thought, oh my God, was I watching something completely different? So obviously at the time I didn't understand that there had been production issues with the graphics and that kind of thing. But I think also because people watching back home didn't see and hear the things that I did, that they couldn't really appreciate it for what it was. So starting with the deadlift then, Ivers, I was literally maybe 10 feet away from Ivers as it was happening. And he had to go up out first on his own. Mark Boyd was hovering around, Zadrunas is there refereeing, and there's a few guys who were they were part of the venue, weren't they? So they're not wusses people. They were.
No, the whole week was a strength week.
Yeah,
they had like events going on,
events.
Powerlifting, a strongman show the day before. Yeah. They had weightlifting. There was like for the whole golf area.
Yeah,
there was various different events going on.
But World's Ultimate Strongman was the only one that was wusses, if you like, wusses. Anyway, so these guys are there to, and the rules were, and they had been told, and I heard him tell them this, do the clips for the athletes, do the clips, take the clips off, take the clips on. So Ivers does his first deadlift and then he's unstrapping and these guys are sort of doodle over, but they start picking up the plates. And Mark Boyd afterwards, he's like, don't touch the plates, don't touch them, clips only. So next deadlift, it's their turn to go up again. And then they go straight for the plates and Mark's shouting, clips only, clips only. And he comes over to him, he's like, don't touch the plates. But by that point, it was too late. So, you know, I feel that they did the right thing. So they ran with it. He just kind of had to let it happen because it's on live TV. And short of stopping Ivers at that point, like, then what the hell do we do?
You've got two options in that. And one thing I'm going to point out now is that this is not the first time things like this have happened in competition.
No.
But in a live show where you've got a certain amount of time, there's quite a lot of pressure.
There's no hiding it either in a live show.
I didn't know what was going on. I'm backstage. I'm, behind the screen focusing on the commentating. I didn't see this at the time. I've since in the clip, we'll put it up for you guys to see.
Yeah.
I think Mark dealt with it really well.
Yeah.
You've got two choices in this kind of situation. You either go in and stop it straight away, but when an athlete started, they're already expending energy. So the last thing they want to do is go again.
Yeah. And you've been forced to do that.
I have been forced to do that before, but we won't go into that right now. We're just trying to focus on what's happening. But it does happen regularly in shows. These things are not a one-off occurrence. However, unfortunately, there's been a miscommunication with the loaders. Ivers is the poor bugger that's got, and don't get me wrong, I'd be furious if that happened to me, as would any of the athletes. Yeah. We do not want to be put into that situation. Ivers was, all the athletes were taken away, spoken to, and they had two options. They could have said, right, Ivers can go again last, but I can guarantee you he wouldn't have wanted to do that.
Who would?
You've already given a lot of energy. So they said they're going to look at the camera action, take away the time from him taking his straps off to getting his straps back on, and then give him a new time at the end. He wouldn't have been able to get the last lift no matter what. He's just not strong enough at that to get that pull. And I think in the end it changed his position a couple of places.
It gave him 1 point. No, it didn't change any places. It was a one. Oh yeah,
it changed his places in that event. It didn't change anything overall at the end.
No.
And Ivers had an amazing competition. We're going to talk about the competition itself in another video.
Yeah.
But today we just wanted to address the points. All the athletes were then told, we're going to scrap the loading it.
Yeah.
And you just stay on the bar and people will load it for you. All the athletes were asked, are they happy with that? Every single one of them, including Ivers, was happy with the decision. They got on with the show. I think Bobby Thompson ended up going through and surprising me and a lot of people and winning the deadlift. But like I said, we'll go into the actual event another time. But not one athlete complained about it. Ivers obviously pissed off at the time, as you'd expect.
But they did the right thing for him.
They did the right thing. And in the end, he's had a great performance.
obviously, the event that just happened, I think everyone can agree that it was a bit unfair on Ivar's how it went down, but we had to roll with it. Can everyone agree on that? Yeah? If you were in that position, you would be pissed off, correct? Yeah? So what we're going to do, we're going to go back at the very end and we're going to cut the time that Ivar's was running from one side to the other. That time that he was off the bar, we will deduct it from his total time. Can everyone agree on that? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
You both said yes, yeah?
Yeah.
Does anyone not agree? Does anyone not agree?
One more repeat.
I'll come and speak to you at the end, yeah? Okay, does everyone agree that is fair, yeah? That is the fairest way to do it, yeah? Because that was a fuck up on that, yeah? It wasn't a shit show, it was a fuck up, alright? It's the fuck up that. Everyone agrees, yeah? Ivars, do you agree? Yeah, you happy with that? Okay.
The other issue has been people talking about the mats.
That was, I mean, I was stood right there, and there were guys sort of kicking them back a little bit when they started to come out of place. So, you know, Mark and Don, I think both said those weren't the mats that they were expecting to have.
Yeah. And it was a shame, but it honestly wasn't a huge deal. The only people I've seen complaining about
People watching it
are
online.
people watching.
None of
not
the
one of the
athletes.
but not one of the athletes has complained about it. Not one. And I went up and asked them. I said, "Did it bother you?" You know, and not one of them did.
No.
Which, you know, shows that okay, it wasn't that big a deal. It needs to be something addressed, and they need to get it right.
Yeah, it just needs to be better, because it just looks a little bit, you know,
it does.
rubbish. But and you don't want people to have to kick mats back in, but like literally no one else has complained about it. The athletes certainly.
I think if it was like, if say Novikov was trying to get a world record, you want to make sure that dumbbell as it comes down isn't really moving too much.
Yeah, because and that's another thing actually. So in the athletes meeting, Mark said about lowering the weight down, not letting it drop. That wasn't a fixed or, and I'm not sure if it's in my video or if he said this a bit louder a bit later, because I didn't, you know, show the sort of hour that we were all together. But his reasoning for that was, if you drop it, it's gonna bounce. So it's not that they weren't allowed to drop it. It was a safety thing to protect themselves from getting hurt by the dumbbell, and also so they didn't lose time chasing a bloody dumbbell around the around the stage.
Yeah.
So I think that was something that people thought that had been a rule change, but it wasn't a set rule that they couldn't do it. It was advice given by Mark Boyd.
I think the final thing I've seen a lot of comments about was the flag hoist, which was the mystery event. Quite cool. I know a lot of the guys were sort of worried about the mystery event when they got there. You could see them all trying to find out everything. I got a privileged position of knowing a day before the athletes what it would be. And
I guessed it correctly. So
so if you look back at the videos, Liz got it right.
Yeah,
which was
I've known for months. I haven't actually known though. I saw it in my future.
But I think it was actually a cool concept to the show. It added that element of surprise that like anything could happen.
Took me back to the days of Strongman yesteryear as well. You know,
God, Auntie Liz is getting old. Again, the athletes I think mainly enjoyed it.
They did enjoy it.
I mean, you know, it's going to be one of those things. If you did well on the event, you're going to enjoy it. If you didn't do so well on it,
that was shit.
You know, I hate the duck walk, and I'm shit at it. Yeah. I always say I hate the duck walk
because he's shit at
it. It's, you know, I'm sure lots of people that can't deadlift say the deadlift's rubbish.
Yeah.
And I think it was good to have an event where people didn't actually know what to train for.
No.
And again, I haven't heard any complaints from the athletes.
No.
I've seen online people moaning that the flag was
moaning, remarking,
moaning, remarking, complaining, pointing out, whatever it might be.
Highlighting.
The flag obviously got ripped up. Some of the athletes were just pulling further than they needed to. And if you look at the guys like Jeff, who took big, long strides, and he was using, you know, Novikov as well, jumping up high, using that weight to kind of pull down on it every time. You really have no control of how high it's going to move on those individual pulls. So it just went further than it needed to.
And the flag, contrary to what it may have looked like, the flag actually wasn't the marker. There was a different marker that the athletes, when obviously the referees, needed to be able to see.
Things that can improve on it. I thought it was a cool event that just needs a bit of tinkering with to make better.
With the actual setup itself.
Yeah, the setup itself. I think, obviously, one other thing that these guys had to deal with that isn't so well known is there was a massive sandstorm the night before.
We had furniture flying around and all sorts.
One of the beds on our balcony was nearly flying off.
One of the beds on our balcony.
Our nice balcony. Jesus. Okay, I might get inside now. But you know, there was issues to deal with, and let's remember as well, this is the first time we've seen a live event production for Strongman. I've wanted live events for a long time. Was it perfect? No, it wasn't. There's things that can definitely get better, but we're moving in the right direction, and they've proven that the live concept for Strongman can be done, which I feel is the most important thing to take away from this show.
Yeah, I think also, like, you know, it doesn't look perfect. I don't think anyone could try and argue that case. But I also think it's unfair to compare a live production done for the first time ever with a very polished show that's televised months down the line.
It'll be quite interesting because I believe in a week's time they're putting together the highlight show.
10 days. So I think it was 10 days from yesterday. There's going to be a 1 hour show of this competition that is going to be a more polished looking production.
Yeah.
And you will be able to see every athlete, because that was the thing. Like, people were like, what's the point in having them head to head if you can only see one camera? Couldn't agree more.
From my point of view, I was really angry about that.
Yeah, because you can't bloody see.
I couldn't call what was happening. And then you go from one side to the other, and obviously I don't know how many reps someone's done all of a sudden, and that was difficult, and that's something that needs addressing, and I've already brought that up with the guys, but it's something they're focused on. But obviously, you know, now they'll go get all the camera footage, they'll put it all together perfectly, and hopefully it'll look like a well-polished, edited show should look like.
So one other thing that I saw mentioned a few times was about the loading race. Now, or loading medley. I really enjoyed that event. I thought, like,
it's challenging.
Yeah, it was challenging.
It's quite cool.
The
seeing
platform
how
was quite weird.
The platform.
Yeah, that they were loading to. So the tyre, I don't believe it was ever supposed to go all the way in. It was kind of just like parking your bike. You know, when you put your bike tyre in like a little slat type thing. It was just get it secure.
The rules for the loading event were the tyre had to go under.
Yeah. Did it have to go all the way in?
There was no. I can show you the exact rule list. It just said it just needed to be under.
Yeah.
The other two implements on top.
Yeah. So I've seen people say, "Oh, but it's not fair because that person used the tyre." Strongmen are smart, and they are going to do most, and then not that one. They're going to do whatever it takes, and if it's not explicitly stated in the rules, so Jonas and Terry can't say or do anything about it. That's not fair. Yes. And it happens in Strongman all the time. I think a fine example was Stumpy Reigns with his hoop to do the was it the Africa Stone? Yeah. And like, it wasn't in the rules at the time that you couldn't do it.
If a strongman can figure out a way of bending the rules, they will. Mm-hmm. That's some of the best strongmen, some of the most loved strongmen of all time.
And successful.
Let's not say they cheat. They figure out the best way to do things.
And within the rules as well, because if it's not
And if people aren't happy with it, they will change the rules.
Yes, exactly.
So there's certain things, especially with new strongman as well, you've got different kit being used in different shows.
Yeah.
And I've seen that type of thing happen before. But
you still the rules a little bit.
You've still got to, you know, there's nothing different between lifting the shield up and putting it on the edge of the platform as there is on the tyre. You know, you still got to work it, and you saw how hard that shield was.
Oh,
it was awkward for the guys.
Really hard to get to that height because it's so deep and big and
But it was it took me back to watching a lot of old strongman where they did have a lot of awkward objects that were hard to figure out, and that's what was amazing about Novikov this week. He really reminds me of like the greats from the past that could just look at something awkward and figure out the best way of doing it. He on the arm over arm pull was thinking about all sorts of ways. I was just watching him. At one point, he was talking about just holding it and walking backwards with it. I actually tried it off camera just to see how it would work, but because it was on the crane, it was swinging so much.
Yeah,
it would have been very
really
dangerous
had to pull it straight down, didn't you?
But you could see how athletic he was. He was jumping up, using his body weight. Whereas other guys, if you see one of our videos, Levan, the arm wrestler, Sagnashvili, he was kind of doing it like a real strict bicep kind of wrist pull. That's a great way to get a pump in the biceps, and it shows real strength, but it's slow.
Yeah.
So those shorter kind of, you know, they're going to blow your biceps up. You're not going to be as fast and as efficient. The guys that were good at it took longer pulls. They used their body weight, and then the guys that had the gloves, they just let the rope slip through their hands to save time on the way down.
Yeah.
And that's smart. They were all in the same boat. They didn't know what the event was. Some of them figured it out, some of them didn't. And that has always been a lot of strongman.
That is what strongman is. And, you know, the further back you go, the less standardised it is and the wackier it is.
Yeah.
And
I think all the athletes seem to really enjoy the competition. The people watching there seem to enjoy. I'm sure lots of you watching back home. I did, although there was issues with the cameras, angles and stuff like that, I still enjoyed sitting there watching it, commentating with Andy. I thought it was a great show. I thought the Iranian guys did really well. I thought Bobby Thompson was awesome.
Ivers was amazing.
Ivers was amazing.
JF.
Novikov was amazing. Luke Stoltman, his performance after the deadlift was really, really impressive.
It was an impressive lineup. If you look from, you know,
there was everyone from start to finish was great. Ethel Ingolson, he really surprised me. Real solid performance. I know a lot of people kind of counted him out before. He's proven a lot of people wrong.
Did you see Novikov's response on Instagram? And he's like, "Oh look, I accidentally won a competition by a 10-point margin."
I'm sure.
Guess World's Strongest Man wasn't a coincidence.
I'm sure people are going to say it's just because it's a speed event and stuff like that.
Oh
but
God, please, people don't. But do you know what? Dare I say it? He was more impressive than he was at Worlds even.
I can honestly say this weekend, no one in the world would have beaten him.
No,
with that set of events, you could put Kiliashkovsky in there. He would not have beaten him with that set of events.
No.
I'm not saying he can't beat him, and I'm not saying the other guys that were in that competition can't beat him. But on that performance, he was head and shoulders above everyone else.
He was very impressive.
He's going to be a very hard man to beat this year.
It's exciting though. Like the talent that we've got, it's getting better. So.
All the time getting better. More competitions for the guys to do. I mean, you look at Konstantin Janasha was a little disappointing, I felt, but he's coming back from an injury. Rob Kearney's come back really fast, so you didn't expect him to do so well. Tom was probably the most disappointing, I feel.
I think Tom was having not disappointing as in you were disappointed
just as a fan,
him,
you know.
for him.
I think coming off that second place at Worlds, we were all expecting a big battle between the two. But that's strongman. You know, maybe
different day, different set of events, it can be a totally different story.
And I've said that with the whole competition, that whole list of athletes, put 5 different events in there, suddenly completely different results.
But that's why we love strongman, because we never really know what's going to happen, as much as we try and pretend that we do.
Well, I did get the winner right, but we'll
talk about that later.
Finally, some positive thoughts, because, you know, we've addressed the negatives, and yes, there's things that need improving. But these guys have managed to pull off a live strongman show, which everyone's been asking for. With all, myself included, I've been asking for live shows. You know, people have said it can't be done. You have to do the editing and stuff like that to make it crisp. And yes,
maybe you do.
Well,
but
I think they've proved that it can be done.
Yeah.
Can it be better? 100% it can be better. Now they've got to go and prove that concept again. So
let's not forget as well some of the other challenges. Bloody COVID.
How big a challenge is that? But just getting getting the athletes out there, getting us out there.
I don't think Don will mind me sharing, because I had this conversation with him, because I said it must be costing you, because we've been tested like 6 times in 4 days.
Well, how much?
$12,000 it costs them just in COVID testing, and they have a budget. They're not working on a bottomless pit of money.
They do a great job of looking after the athletes, but they get deals with hotels and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like you and me were treated like kings and queens, because we went there. Literally, all the couples were put into the same room. So Ivers and his wife had the same room that we did. The guys that went on their own had a smaller room, which is understandable. You know, it's.
I don't think there are enough suites for absolutely everyone.
No, but we were lucky with that.
The food was amazing as well, wasn't it?
Food was great.
And what they did, so it was buffet style, probably some of the best buffet food I've ever had though. But they extended the eating hours. So like breakfast was from the crack of dawn until lunchtime. Then it was straight into lunch up until dinner. So,
and it wasn't like you could only go once. The guys were allowed to come 6 o'clock in the morning if they wanted. They could go away, come back at 9.
So they had unlimited food throughout the day, and really nice, good food too. So it was a good, in that respect, I think it was great circumstances.
I purposely, being a former athlete, I went up to the guys afterwards and I was like, honestly, what did you think of the show? From watching it, I enjoyed it, but I wanted to know what they thought. Every single one of them enjoyed it.
Yeah.
They've all got good positive things to say.
Yeah.
yeah, there's things that can improve.
Yeah, especially for the viewer, because it's important that the fan enjoys the experience too.
I think that, you know, we've put on a show before. We put on a show but that didn't have TV to be an issue. You know, we wanted to make sure the athletes enjoyed it and the fans enjoyed it. As a production, then you've got to think about TV and people watching back home. So they've got 3 different
Spinning
aspects.
a lot of plates.
Plus doing it live, plus doing it during a pandemic, which everything's closed. Bahrain is closed. Literally, they're in a lockdown. They were allowed a certain amount of people outdoors for this outdoor event.
Yeah, but we all had to wear, like, they created a bubble by testing us all so frequently, but still it's completely mandatory to wear masks in all public areas, and that includes outside. The athletes were the only exemption there, weren't they? So
Andy and myself didn't have to wear them for the commentary.
no.
And even the referees had to wear their masks.
Yeah.
So, you know, we actually probably felt the safest we've felt in large areas.
Yeah.
And, you know,
It was great.
The plane there was busy.
Yeah, the plane there was horrible,
but,
but the plane back was great.
It was.
Yeah.
Right. But that's for another video.
Yes.
So we've gone through the issues we've seen through most.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's other things, but there's always little things that people
Yeah.
nitpick about.
I think the main takeaway, though, is how receptive WUS are to this feedback. So it's not like, oh, you know, this isn't going to get better, blah, blah, blah. They are listening, they're watching, they're reading. They've both
They genuinely seem to want to improve all the time. So I like that about them.
Yeah, that's what I like about them too, because you can have those open and honest conversations.
I know I can come on here and say, look, the information you're giving me for while I was commentating was shit.
Yeah, and
they're
you're
not gonna
they're
not gonna, you know, get upset about
don't
it.
get lost back. Bastard.
And that's all we want is
Yeah.
sport to get better. You guys to enjoy more shows. Hopefully we can see more live shows that improve.
Yeah, definitely.
And you know, it's proven it can be done. While you're here, guys, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my awesome strength content.